Section 1 of the Heptameron of the Tales of Margaret, Queen of Navarre, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mary J. The Heptameron of the Tales of Margaret, Queen of Navarre, Volume 3, by Margaret of Navarre. Translated by George Saintsbury. Day 2, Tale 19. In the time of the Marquis of Mantua, who had married the sister of the Duke of Ferrara, there lived in the household of the Duchess a damsel named Pauline, who was greatly loved by a gentleman in the Marquis's service, and this to the astonishment of every one. For, being poor, albeit handsome and greatly beloved by his master, he ought, in their estimation, to have wooed some wealthy dame, but he believed that all the world's treasures centred in Pauline, and looked to his marriage with her to gain and possess it. The Marchioness, who desired that Pauline should, through her favour, make a more wealthy marriage, discouraged her as much as she could from wedding the gentleman, and often hindered the two lovers from talking together, pointing out to them that, should the marriage take place, they would be the poorest and sorriest couple in all Italy. But such argument as this was by no means convincing to the gentleman, and though Pauline on her side dissembled her love as well as she could, she none the less thought about him as often as before. With the hope that time would bring them better fortune, this love of theirs continued for a long while, during which it chanced that a war broke out, and that the gentleman was taken prisoner along with a Frenchman, whose heart was bestowed in France, even as was his own in Italy. Finding themselves comrades in misfortune, they began to tell their secrets to one another, the Frenchman confessing that his heart was a fast prisoner, though he gave not the name of its prison-house. However, as they were both in the service of the Marquis of Mantua, this French gentleman knew right away that his companion loved Pauline, and in all friendship for him advised him to lay his fancy aside. This the Italian gentleman swore was not in his power, and he declared that if the Marquis of Mantua did not requite him for his captivity and his faithful service by giving him his sweetheart to wife, he would presently turn friar and serve no master but God. This, however, his companion could not believe, perceiving him in no token of devotion, unless it were that which he bore to Pauline. At the end of 9 months the French gentleman obtained his freedom, and by his diligence compassed that of his comrade also, who thereupon used all his efforts with the Marquis and Marchioness to bring about his marriage with Pauline. But all was of no avail. They pointed out to him the poverty wherein they would both be forced to live, as well as the unwillingness of the relatives on either side, and they forbade him ever to speak with the maiden, to the end that absence and lack of opportunity might quell his passion. Finding himself compelled to obey, the gentleman begged of the Marchioness that he might have leave to bid Pauline farewell, promising that he would afterwards speak to her no more, and upon his request being granted, as soon as they were together, he spoke to her as follows. Heaven and earth are both against us, Pauline, and hinder us not only from marriage, but even from having sight and speech of one another. And by laying on us this cruel command, our master and mistress may well boast of having with one word broken 2 hearts, whose bodies perforce must henceforth languish. And by this they show that they have never known love or pity, and although I know that they desire to marry each of us honourably and to worldly advantage, ignorant as they are that contentment is the only true wealth, yet have they so afflicted and angered me that never more can I do them loyal service. I feel sure that had I never spoken of marriage, they would not have shown themselves so scrupulous as to forbid me from speaking to you. But I would have you know that, having loved you with a pure and honourable love, and wooed you for what I would fain defend against all others, I would rather die than change my purpose now to your dishonour. And since, if I continued to see you, I could not accomplish so harsh a penance as to restrain myself from speech, whilst, if being here I saw you not, my heart, unable to remain void, would fill with such despair as must end in woe, I have resolved, and that long since, to become a monk. I know indeed full well that men of all conditions may be saved, but would gladly have more leisure for contemplating the divine goodness, which will, I trust, forgive me the errors of my youth, and so change my heart that it may love spiritual things as truly as hitherto it has loved temporal things. And if God grant me grace to win his grace, my sole care shall be to pray to him without ceasing for you. And I entreat you, by the true and loyal love that has been betwixt us both, that you will remember me in your prayers, and beseech our Lord to grant me as full a measure of steadfastness when I see you no more, as he has given me of joy in beholding you. Finally, I have all my life hoped to have of you in wedlock that which honour and conscience allow, and with this hope have been content. But now that I have lost it and can never have you to wife, I pray you at least, in bidding me farewell, treat me as a brother, and suffer me to kiss you. When the hapless Pauline, who had always treated him somewhat rigorously, beheld the extremity of his grief and his uprightness, which, amidst all his
Sample complete. Ready to continue?